So today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a reading section. And really a reader, your job is at the end of a section is that you understand the text that you read. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to think aloud for you, and the goal of that is that you will hear the strategy that I'm using as I'm thinking aloud today. The strategy that I'm going to use today is using one part of the sentence to understand what the other part is saying. So I'm going to focus on this text here specifically, and that's what I want you to be listening for, is how I'm thinking my way through this text and how I use one part of the text to help me understand the other part. And then you yourself as a reader, you might find that this strategy is useful in different contexts. Okay, so here we go. All forms of slavery or practices similar to slavery, such as the sale and trafficking of children, debt bondage and serfdom, and forced or compulsory labor, including forced or compulsory recruitment of children for use in armed conflict. You know, I notice myself as a reader, and once I get to the end of this, I find that there were a lot of words in there and a lot of different new ideas, and I don't feel like I really understand the text very well. So I know that for myself, I need to go back and read it again. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. All forms of slavery, I know what that means, or practices similar to slavery. Okay, I'm good so far. Such as. And when I see this part, such as, that tells me that there's going to be an example. So here, I know what slavery means, and such as, examples of slavery is what's coming next. So such as the sale and trafficking of children. Debt bondage. Now this is completely a new term for me. I've never seen it before, debt bondage. But because I know what this first piece of the sentence means, that helps me understand what this means too. See, I know that we're talking about slavery, and I know that we're giving examples of slavery. So I know that debt bondage is one form of slavery. So that helps me better understand what's happening in the text. And then if I keep going on, so debt bondage and serfdom, that's another new word I've never seen before. It's completely new to me. But because, again, I can go back to this half of my sentence, slavery, such as serfdom, that word tells me that serfdom is a form of slavery. So I can use one part of my sentence, and I can use a trigger, such as, and that tells me that this and this are connected, that slavery is connected to these different examples. So the examples here are connected to what this term here means. And then in this section, I'm going to come across some new words again. So starting right here in the text, in fact, North American history is filled with abusive forms of child labor, such as children working in mines, sawmills, and sweatshop factories. Again, what I see here is I see a word that might be newer. So I'm going to look at this word right here, abusive. And that's not really a word that I'm familiar with. So I'm going to use the rest of the context to try to help me familiarize myself with what that might mean. So filled with abusive forms of child labor. Again, I see that such as, and so I know that the beginning of my sentence and the end of my sentence is going to be connected. Such as is going to give me some examples. So if I don't know what an abusive form of child labor is, I'm going to get some examples here, and that's going to tip me off to what that word abusive could possibly mean. So, such as children working in mines. Well, I know that children should not be working in mines, and I know that that is not an appropriate way to treat a child, and so that tips me off that the word abusive means that I'm kind of taking advantage of them, or that I'm not treating them appropriately. So this part of the sentence where I have examples, children working in mines, children working in sawmills, that tells me that this word that before I didn't understand, now I have more information about it, and I know that abusive means that, that it's taking advantage of that person. So you can use this strategy in lots of different content areas. You could use it in geography, in history, in science texts. Whenever you see these trigger words like such as or for example, you know that there are two parts of your sentence that go together. And if you know one half of that sentence, the other half might be able to give you more information about some new words and new concepts that you maybe didn't understand before. So I personally found this strategy helpful, and I know that if I come across a text that might be a little bit tougher, I can look for such as, for example, and for myself as a learner, I know that that will help me to be able to decode that text and to be able to understand it better. So this strategy would be helpful in history, in geography, in math, in science, any text where you would be coming across newer words and newer concepts. If you can use one piece of that sentence, then that will tip you off to what that other word means, and then you as a reader are able to put all of it together and make more sense out of that reading.